Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here. We're going to be touching a topic that actually made me go and acquire a bottle of water so I could stay hydrated throughout all the idiocracy I'm about to read. It's called, "What is a rule that your DM enforced that detracted from the fun of the game for you?" Well, if you have a story similar to this, go ahead and leave it in the comments below on our subreddit r/MrRipper. Until then, let's get right in to not only the stories, but my beautiful bottle of Aqua Regalia water that's going to hydrate me and keep me sane throughout. So our first story is actually broken up into 3 parts, a comment and 2 responses therein. Had a DM that made it a point to punish us every time we did something cool and expended a lot of resources to do it, because otherwise it would be OP. OP standing for overpowered. Fighter using an action surge for 4 attacks? Whoops, you're attacking so fast that the enemies around you get opportunity attacks. That doesn't make any sense. Sorcerer casting a spell and a cantrip in a turn with a quicken spell? Whoops, your burning hand spell burns you too, because you couldn't control that much magic. What? Well, why not? This combined with the fact that he would forget rules and then BS reasons why whatever he wants to do works anyways. Enemy is shooting a bow while within melee range of their target? Oh, they don't get disadvantaged because they're way taller than you. Was still a medium creature, mind you. Enemy can't catch up to my retreating 1 HP wood elf because I'm 5 feet faster? He inexplicably closes the gap to speed up the encounter, even though I was retreating into a forest and very feasibly could have survived. Had to start DMing my own game just to get out of this one. As a first response we have, God, my last DM was like that. Wild shape into a fire elemental, you say? Oh, now that you've done that, I'll mention that the sails of the ship you're moving past are actually down, and you've set them on fire. And no, it doesn't matter if your character would have seen that before they moved, because no taking back your move. Oh, you want to cast Mirage Arcane as your first 7th level spell? Okay. Now that you've cast the spell, make a charisma performance check to determine if it's convincing, even though you're a charisma-dumped druid, and the spell doesn't involve performing in front of an audience. Summoned elementals in battle? Okay. Halfway through, I'm going to determine that elementals are so alien that they don't understand that they shouldn't attack you as well, despite how the spell reads, which is obvious. Needless to say, we died to Tiamat after he shoehorned a 4 times deadly encounter right before she appeared, and we had no supplies or spell slots left. He, won D&D against us, his players. Okay, DMs, you are not allowed to play that way, stop it. The second response is this. Had a friend with a similar punitive DMing style. Ooh, we're busting out the big boy words today. It got to the point where I wouldn't add any flavor or anything to my actions, because even the act of describing your attack would give him an opening to call for a roll to see if he could actually make you fail somehow. Oh, charming. The one that ended it for me, though? Fighting on a ship, and my barbarian is by the wheel. On the slightly lower deck in the middle of the ship is the monster. Dun dun dun. Now, mechanically, my character can run down the stairs and attack the monster. I ask if I can flavor the attack as him vaulting over the railing to smash the monster with my hammer. Hey, that's actually kind of cool, and I thought about doing that too. Nothing mechanically different than what my normal action would be, really. Sure, go ahead and roll an acrobatics check. He knows I'm 20 strength and 8 dex. What do I get if I pass? You get to do the action. But I can already do the action. The only thing rolling gets me is a chance to fail. You're a short, stubby dwarf trying to make a jump. You have to roll for that. Never mind. I run down the stairs and hit the monster. Next turn. Listen, advice for all the would-be DMs out there that in the world of Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Cthulhu, and all that stuff, don't punish your players. The game isn't meant to be a PvP encounter, so to speak. You're meant to make the players have a fun, memorable experience. And yes, that must sometimes end with them dying horribly, burning alive, or some other acidic, raunchy death. But you're not their enemy. You're their storyteller. And they are the players in your play. So try to be nice. And if you gotta kill them, do it with a lot of love. Worst rule enforced number 1. Crit fails on every nat 1 attacks, skills, saves, you name it. Take double damage from spells on a nat 1 save, for example, was broken and not fun. Worst rule enforced number 2. Crit successes on saves that were nat 20. Would usually mean that a significant number of enemies would take 0 damage from a spell they were caught in the area of. Rarely helped out of a player though, but did from time to time. Worst rule enforced number 3. DM insisted on running large mass war battles with a large party of players, and didn't use any mass combat rules such as the damage horde rules. Every foe over 60 got its attack rolls. This results in combats that took more than an hour to roll back to the top of the round, so everyone had to wait for long stretches of a time to do jack. And all those attack rolls invariably meant that the PCs got hit and critted a bunch more than they got to make any actions back. Even AC 23 plus tanks were usually dropping constantly from taking more than 20 attacks, some melee, some ranged, in these battles. And, I shit you not, one battle took the group more than 3 weeks of 2 game sessions a week to finally power through. What the hell? Worst rule enforced number 4. Allowed his girlfriend, as a player, to roll up an elf noble princess who got 5 extra full character write-up NPCs as her personal royal guard. And in combat, she got to do all the actions for her own character and her 5 royal guardians, giving this player 6 times the amount of screen time in each and every round of combat. This compounded the 3rd rule enforced, making all other players super bored. Ew, there's a power fantasy I smell going on here. Worst rule enforced number 5. Also insisted on using a large number of NPC enemies designed with PC stats, classes, and rules, instead of just using stat blocks with minor modifications. This also served to make enemies who could one-shot players and were complex to run, so the DM couldn't keep up with all the crap they had going on in their builds. Not the rank-and-file enemies, oh no, God forbid that. They were designed as level 5 character equivalent stat blocks, instead of the half-CR goblins and orcs in the DMG. Every enemy, even the archers in the above battle, had 50 plus HP. Blech. Bonus worst rules. Dun dun dun. Number 11. All the same DM. Also, he never took the time to actually go through and just fucking read his books. Player handbook, fuck him. DMG, fuck him. Monster manual, get out. You name it, he just glanced at shit, then made up everything on the fly, including bullshit resourceless area effect volleys from archers that forced saves versus full or half damage. Resourceless half damage versus 2 arrows for every volley. Even tanks with high AC were forced to make a dex save instead. 2d8 plus dex times 2, or save for half. And players would be subjected to many of these each time archers' turns came up in combat. Wow! This guy was a true trip. He just wanted to impress his girlfriend with as many big numbers as he could, except the big number that counted, his heart. The string rule. Interesting. After you declared your action, you had to be able to run a string from the top of your miniature's head to the top of the target miniature's head? If anything blocked the string, your action failed and your turn was over, because you automatically miss due to not having a true line of sight. Love it. I love losing a 5th level spell slot, because after I wanted to use it, turns out another model's raised arm slightly obscured the sight line drawn by the string. Fucking asshole. Anyway, good thing that came from it is I started DMing and took most of his group with me. Hey, 10 out of 10. Also, I expected the string to be something goofy, but not quite that goofy. I get line of sight and reasonable ideas, but that was too friggin' much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have another 2-parter, a comment and a response. More of a ruling, but despite being proficient in all simple weapons and long and short swords, my monk was unable to hit people with a cane proficiently as it was an improvised weapon. The response is very simple and I agree with it. It's dumb. It specifically states in the player's handbook that improvised weapons like that or anything similar can be treated as those weapons. The example it gives is of a table leg broken off a table. It's mechanically a club and treated as a simple weapon, which is true. It's not going to be treated like a fancy, flanged mace or anything, but instead it's going to be considered something simple like a club. That's why they always talked about farmers having the best weapon of all time, a spear. A spear is basically a pointy stick. So any pointy stick that's long and sturdy will be basically a spear. But, it's going to be an improvised spear, of course, a simple weapon rather than something actually professionally made, so it's not an improv weapon, it's a spear. I picked the Great Weapon Master feat for my barbarian. Good choice. And then after picking it, he said I could only use it once per turn instead of every melee attack. And then wouldn't let me choose a different feat. I kindly left after that. Proud of you. Getting hit with a critical applied 1 level of exhaustion. The bad guys that have a lifespan of 3 rounds weren't really affected, but it made the game so punishing and unfun, I almost quit. For clarification, he said it was to simulate bone-breaking criticals, but I've broken bones and never recovered from them after 1 long rest. I understand the idea of a critical damage system, something that is to be discussed before the game actually starts, though, because I think the realism of that would be kind of cool, just not broken bones unless something was severely damaging, like, I don't know, someone dropping an entire piano on your head. Yeah, you'd probably be dead, but for the sake of argument, let's just say you broke a leg or something. I can understand that, but this is something you clear beforehand rather than just throwing players into it. When you died, you had to use a pre-generated character the DM made. The problem was that the DM was an idiot. He gave me a Dwarf Forge Domain Cleric with heavily armored feet, and Magic Initiate to snag Firebolt, and Mending and Burning Hands. The stats were, in order, 15, 14, 15, 10, 13, and 12. We were level 8, by the way. It's not fun playing a cleric whose wisdom was in the gutter. Removing class features because they're too powerful. Not talking homebrew ones either, but outright saying you can no longer sneak attack, etc. Because those class features are too strong. We have a confession. Hail Mary, full of grace, may the Baja bless this ass. Confession of a bad DM time. Magical misfire. I gave my artificer a cool, custom arcane rifle and used some of the misfire rules for firearms. I can't remember where I found them. I thought this was a critical role thing, but in hindsight it might have been some D&D wiki homebrew. You roll on a misfire table anytime your attack roll is 3 or lower. The plan was to upgrade the experimental weapon so later the misfire threshold is reduced. But, well, that fun lasted about 1.5 combats. The misfire was so bad that my player just stopped using her rifle that she was initially super excited about altogether and just spammed Toll of the Dead. I eventually redeemed it, I think, but just dropping the misfire table in story by saying her mentor had a breakthrough and fix the rifle. But yeah, critical flubs suck. Hey, don't worry about it. I was expecting something way worse from a confession. That was actually not too bad. You were trying to implement something cool and it just kind of, misfired. Rolling for who you hit as an archer. A guy who used to DM for me would make you roll a die to see if your arrow would hit who you're aiming at or anywhere within 5 feet of them. Then if it hit them or an ally, you would roll to see if you hit. A trained archer can't seem to be skilled enough to aim his arrow in a general direction. Traditional XP leveling instead of milestone leveling in an RP-heavy campaign where XP was not given for social or exploration encounters. Took nearly a year of bi-weekly sessions for our Samurai Fighter and Berserker Barbarian to get an extra attack. I had a DM that insisted that all NPCs should have class levels too. Oh no, not another one. Game sucked. It was unnecessarily hard all the time. Bandits were always level 5 fighters or barbarians. Soldiers were always level 10 minimum. He even gave monsters class levels. Goblins were usually level 1 to 5 depending on what they were. A chief for a goblin was always 13 plus and a spellcaster. We wiped every other session. I ended up quitting D&D for quite some time until a good DM showed up at my local game store. The new DM ended up teaching me how to DM, and it's stuck ever since. I'm proud of you for finding a new DM and for not quitting, because DM is a magical experience. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and to ring that bell to get notified when we make a brand new post. That said, if you have a story to share, you can do so in the comments below or on our subreddit r/MrRipper. If you want to come say hi to me, you can do so on my website, brianvonva.com. Links in the description. You can find all of my socials through that, though I'm sticking to Twitch for a while, whereas YouTube, I will return to it very soon. I always try to end things on a positive note, and today's no different. There's a lot of people out there that say they have a, this is all in relation to one of the stories we told tonight about confessions of a bad DM. A lot of people think it's bad to try new things. It's not. Sometimes it's going to flop and flub, not all the time. So don't worry about introducing a new idea or a new structure to something. It could only go one of two ways, good or bad. Sometimes bad, sometimes good. The whole point is you were trying to make it more interesting for your group. And that goes for anybody. A fun time in DM or being a DM is making the world as fleshed out as you want, but obviously just make sure to clear it with your players beforehand, because you can have some cool ideas that just piss everyone off, but it's not your fault. So don't ever punish yourself for being imaginative. Just make sure to have a conversation beforehand. You know, just say, hey, guys, gals, would you like this included? Would you not like this included? That's all it takes, 2 seconds. And if they say yes, awesome, no, awesome, go on. All the love, be safe, be happy. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.